December 22nd, 1944. Downing Street, London. The winter storm outside shook the windows of number 10 as Winston Churchill leaned over a war map illuminated by a cold blue lamp. Snow fell over Europe, freezing roads, choking supply lines, slowing every Allied column, except one. Far to the southeast, Lieutenant General George S. Patton was doing the unthinkable. His Third Army, already stretched thin, was pushing faster into the Ardennes while every other commander was slowing or consolidating. Churchill expected a routine midnight report, Montgomery preparing defensive belts, Bradley stabilizing the central front, and Patton reluctantly reducing speed to avoid overextension. But then a dispatch arrived from Eisenhower's headquarters. Patton was refusing to pause, refusing to hold, refusing to obey what every senior commander judged as operational necessity. And in that moment, Churchill understood. The stakes, if Patton advanced too far and snapped the Allied line, the German counteroffensive, now erupting in the Ardennes, could break through and unravel everything the Allies had fought for since D-Day. What Churchill wrote next would shape the final months of the war. By late December 1944, the Allied armies had clawed their way across France, shattered German defenses, and were closing on the Rhine. Victory seemed within reach, but beneath the surface of triumph lay exhaustion, divisions depleted, armor worn down, fuel dangerously low, and winter, the harshest in decades, had frozen the Western Front into a landscape of misery. Yet one commander refused to slow his march, George S. Patton, whose battlefield philosophy was simple: attack, keep attacking, and attack again. His belief was absolute. Relentless pressure would collapse Germany faster than any cautious approach. And in Patton's mind, slowing down was not a tactical choice, it was surrendering initiative. Across the Channel, Churchill faced a different reality. He saw the political fragility of the coalition, the limits of manpower, and the strategic nightmare unfolding in the Ardennes. The German counteroffensive, now known as the Battle of the Bulge, threatened to tear open the Allied front. But Patton was already moving, already attacking, already committing his men into the freezing forests before the full scale of the German offensive was clear. This video uncovers the untold story of how Churchill reacted, what he wrote, what he ordered, what he privately feared, and why Patton's refusal to slow down forced one of the most critical leadership decisions of the Second World War. In the months leading to the crisis, Allied victories had transformed Europe. Paris liberated, Antwerp secured, German armies in full retreat. Public morale soared, and military planners believed the war could be won before spring. But success came with a hidden cost. Allied supply lines stretched more than 500 miles from the beaches of Normandy. Fuel convoys crawled across France. Ammunition was rationed. Tires cracked in the cold. Tanks broke down faster than they could be repaired. But Patton didn't care. Throughout October and November 1944, he had pushed his Third Army with relentless speed, sometimes advancing 30 miles a day. His commanders warned him the pace was unsustainable. Patton rejected every complaint. "My men can eat their belts if they have to, but they will move." This philosophy clashed with the British High Command, especially Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, whose methodical style was the opposite of Patton's bold charges. Churchill had long played mediator between the two. He admired Patton's energy, but feared his unpredictability. By early December 1944, Allied intelligence had detected unusual German troop movements in the Ardennes. Reports were scattered, incomplete, and often dismissed. Many assumed the Germans lacked the manpower for a major offensive. But Churchill was uneasy. He had warned the War Cabinet, the Hun may yet show his fangs. As temperatures plunged, fog blanketed the forests and grounded Allied aircraft, the perfect cover for a German surprise attack. And on December 16, Hitler struck with his final gamble, a massive breakthrough attempt aimed at splitting the Allied armies. Bradley, Montgomery, and Eisenhower scrambled to contain the assault. They needed coordination, discipline, a united front. But one commander did not wait for orders. Patton immediately pushed toward the sound of gunfire. He believed speed would save the trapped American forces near Bastogne and disrupt the German timetable. But the faster he moved, the more dangerously exposed his southern flank became. British generals grew alarmed. If Patton stretched too far, the Germans could swing around and drive a wedge between Allied armies. This was the context when Eisenhower's headquarters sent word to London. Patton was refusing all directives to reduce speed. It was not the first time Patton had ignored caution, but this time the risks were catastrophic. Churchill's advisors insisted that Patton be restrained immediately, but restraining him could slow the one force capable of relieving Bastogne. Churchill stood between two imperatives: protect the overall front or unleash the only commander bold enough to strike back in the worst winter of the war. And so began the conflict that would force Churchill to write one of the most consequential wartime messages of his leadership. The inciting incident began at 04:30 a.m., December 22, 1944. Inside the cold, dimly lit operations trailer of Patton's 3rd Army headquarters near Luxembourg, a message came through from SHAEF, Eisenhower's supreme headquarters. It was simple, direct, and expected. 3rd Army is to slow advance, consolidate, prepare defensive depth. No one doubted the logic. Patton's men were exhausted, his supply lines brittle, and the German offensive still expanding. Slowing down was the safe move, the doctrinal move. But Patton read the message only once. Then he tore it from the teletype, folded it sharply, and shoved it into his pocket. His reply stunned even his closest officers. "Tell Ike this: we will not slow down. We move at dawn." Colonel Harkins hesitated. "Sir, that may place our entire flank at risk." Patton glared. "Risk? The enemy is attacking everywhere. That means everywhere is the right place to strike him." Within minutes, his corps commanders received orders to continue aggressive advance toward Bastogne, doubling their rate of march. When the message reached Eisenhower's staff, shock rippled through the headquarters. Major General Walter Bedell Smith, Ike's chief of staff, said quietly, "Patton intends to fight the entire German army by himself." By noon, the report reached London. Inside Churchill's underground cabinet room, the Prime Minister froze as he reread the dispatch. His military advisors were furious. Brooke, the chief of the Imperial General Staff, declared bluntly, "He will rupture the line. He will leave us exposed along a front of 50 miles. But another argument began to form. Only Patton was moving fast enough to counterattack the German thrust. Only Patton had the momentum to relieve the 101st Airborne trapped in Bastogne. Only Patton could transform disaster into opportunity. This dilemma was now unmistakable. Should Churchill intervene to restrain Patton or let him charge into the heart of Hitler's offensive? This was the inciting incident, the moment that forced Churchill into a decision no Allied leader wanted to face. It was during a pause, a quiet moment between briefings, that Churchill walked to his private writing desk and opened his diary. What he wrote in that moment would become the emotional center of his reaction to Patton's defiance. "This general is both our sword and our peril." These words, never sent but preserved in his own hand, reveal the truth. Churchill admired Patton and feared him. And now the sword was cutting too far, too fast. The confrontation that followed was not a single meeting, but a chain reaction. At SHAEF headquarters in Versailles, a heated debate broke out over Patton's refusal. Montgomery's liaison officer demanded action. "He must be stopped. He endangers the entire Northern Front." American generals fired back. "He's the only one attacking. Without him, Bastogne falls." Eisenhower stayed silent for nearly a minute before answering. "Patton is doing what the situation requires, but he must not break our structure." But there was a problem. Patton did not ask for permission. He was already moving. At 1810 hours, a secure line between London and Versailles was opened. Eisenhower's voice echoed through static. "Prime Minister, Patton is pushing faster than expected." Churchill's reply was immediate. "Faster or dangerously so?" Eisenhower exhaled audibly. "Both, sir." The room fell silent. Brooke leaned forward, ready to insist on curbing Patton, but Churchill raised a hand. "General Eisenhower," he said slowly, "do you believe Patton's advance is essential to breaking the German thrust?" "Yes." "Do you believe he risks the integrity of your line?" "Yes." This was the impossible choice laid bare. Churchill responded with a line that surprised even his own staff. "Then your task is to harness him, not hinder him." But after the call ended, Churchill turned to his generals. "Prepare a message, a firm one." The War Office drafted a severe reprimand, essentially demanding Eisenhower restrain Patton at once. It said, "An uncoordinated advance risks strategic calamity." Churchill read it twice. Then he crossed out the entire first paragraph. His handwritten replacement: "Coordination must be preserved, but speed is our ally. Ensure Patton acts within the framework of unified command." This was the heart of Churchill's conflict. Stop Patton and risk losing Bastogne. Let Patton run wild and risk losing the entire front. He chose neither extreme, but a razor-thin middle. When the revised message reached SHAEF, chaos erupted. Montgomery's senior officers insisted it gave Patton too much freedom. American officers insisted it restrained him too much. Patton himself, upon hearing of the message, famously snapped, "Churchill can say what he likes. I will relieve Bastogne." His chief of staff, General Hobart Gay, warned him, "Sir, this will cause a political storm." Patton's reply became legendary in Third Army headquarters. "History is watching. Politics can wait." On the night of December 23rd, Churchill added one final line to his message before sending it privately to Eisenhower. "Let him strike, but let him not become isolated." This was the moment of maximum tension. The British feared collapse. The Americans feared inaction. Patton feared nothing except missing the chance to deal a decisive blow. And Churchill, balancing between two titans of command, had made his choice. Patton would continue, but under watchful, uneasy British eyes. Dawn, December 24th, 1944. A thin, pale sun rose over the frozen fields of Belgium. Snow still clung to the ruined trees, and the brutal cold made every breath painful. But on that morning, the Third Army began the maneuver that would cement its place in military history. Patton's columns, tanks, half-tracks, artillery, infantry surged forward through ice-choked roads. Units marched day and night. Mechanics worked with bare hands stiffened by frost. Chaplains rode on tanks to keep morale alive. This was not merely movement, it was a forced march unlike anything the U.S. Army had attempted in modern warfare. And all the while, Churchill waited in London for word of the outcome of his decision. He had allowed Patton to advance, but insisted he must not become cut off. At 1650 hours, a message reached Downing Street. Third Army has made contact with enemy forces outside Bastogne. Churchill's advisors were astonished. No one had believed Patton's timetable could be met. But the Third Army was not merely on schedule, it was ahead of it. On December 26th, the breakthrough occurred. The 37th Tank Battalion smashed through German lines and rolled into Bastogne, linking up with the encircled 101st Airborne. Men who had fought for days without sleep or supplies looked on in disbelief as Patton's tanks roared in. The siege was broken. That night, Churchill finally wrote the message he had struggled with for days, a message that balanced praise with a lesson. General Patton has accomplished a march and relief that will live long in the history of war. His vigor may yet shorten this struggle, but let all commanders remember, speed is a weapon only when joined to unity. It was sent privately to Eisenhower, who forwarded its contents in softened form to Patton. Patton read it and smiled. "Unity," he muttered. "Yes, unity behind the attack." Even now, he refused to see himself as the risk. To Patton, the only risk was failing to strike hard enough. Churchill understood that trait well. It was what made Patton invaluable and dangerous in the same breath. In the days that followed, Allied armies regained their balance. The bulge receded. Hitler's last offensive had failed, and Churchill's gamble, refusing to restrain Patton, had paid off. But the success came with a cost. Third Army casualties were heavy, equipment losses severe, the winter brutal, and Patton's aggressive push widened the philosophical divide between British caution and American audacity. Still, for Churchill, the essential truth remained. Patton's refusal to slow down had helped save the Allied line. It was a risk the Prime Minister chose to accept, and history would remember him for it.
In the months after the Battle of the Bulge, historians, generals, and politicians debated whether Patton's defiance had been bravery, recklessness, or divine inspiration. But Churchill's private writings reveal something deeper. He saw Patton not simply as a battlefield commander, but as a force of nature, unpredictable, unstoppable, and essential. "He is our sword and our peril," Churchill had written, a line that defined their entire strategic relationship. The relief of Bastogne became one of the most celebrated maneuvers of the war. It demonstrated the power of speed, improvisation, and daring leadership under catastrophic conditions. It also exposed the fragile balance between boldness and disaster, a balance Churchill managed with extraordinary care. Historically, this moment reshaped Allied command dynamics. Americans gained unprecedented confidence in rapid offensive operations. British command adopted a more flexible posture, and Patton's legacy, already formidable, became immortal. The final revelation comes from Churchill's diary entry on December 28th. Had I forbidden the advance, the war might have lengthened. Had he failed, catastrophe might have ensued. Such is command, the weighing of peril against promise. He ended with a line that captures the essence of wartime leadership. Fortune, once more, favored the bold. And it was this balance, caution guided by courage, that helped the Allies push toward the Rhine, cross into Germany, and end the war in Europe. If you want to understand the human decisions behind history's greatest battles, subscribe for more untold command decisions, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Churchill's place?